I was really depressed. It came to a point, people could see, Karen, you're not okay, but they didn't know what was wrong.
Generally, they should not be marginalized. I mean, there are people who, in the past, and even currently, I believe, who have mental disorder challenges, who would not want to be seen entering a psychiatric hospital.
Being can go through. It could be your mom, your sister, anybody could go to it.
That is Karen recounting her chilling experience from 2015 when she was raped. Karen was drugged by a male friend who she had gone visiting on February 12, 2015, just 2 days to St. Valentine's Day. It took 2 straight years for her to open up about the incident, which almost drove her into ending her own life. This is her first interview 6 years after it happened.
He was like, what do you care for? And I'm like, Jews. So he was like, that's the Don Simon. Because there were other Jews. It was like, oh, that's Don Simon, they can take that one. That was bought for you. With time, I could feel getting weak.
Yeah.
I could feel it in my legs. I could feel it everywhere. So I told him, there's something wrong, I'm not okay. He kept saying, are you okay, Karen? Are you okay? Do you want to go home? Okay, do you want me to get you a cab? Or I'm like, I need to leave. But when I got up, I felt like everything, I don't know how to put it, but it's like you've been drained out of energy and you just, you can't do anything. You don't have the power to do anything. So he was like, Karen, just lie down in the sofa. While so he came again. He was like, are you okay? I'm like, yeah, I'm fine. I'm fine. Just need to go home right now. And at that point, to even take my phone to dial a number was hard. It felt like the phone was like cement. I saw him coming onto me when I was lying down. So I was trying to, get back up. Like there was no strength to do that. So all I was saying was, I could hear myself. All I I was saying was please, please, please. And he continued, and it happened.
At this point, she was convinced it was time to give it all up. Life meant nothing more to her, and she signed it off in a note, a suicide note.
We'll figure out what to say, but so she escorted me actually to get a car. So in the car going home, oh God, I just knew. I knew when I got home, I was just going to end it. So I wrote a suicide note.
Karen tells me she mustered courage to speak to her mentor at the time. What followed was even more heartbreaking for her.
You see, I couldn't believe it. I'm like, I'm coming to you, telling you something I had gone through, which is the worst thing every human being can go through. It could be your mom, your sister, anybody could go through it. And for you to even look at me and try to do the same thing, how inhuman can you be?
In the next 2 years after the incident, Karen was in a dark place, utterly depressed and numb to her immediate emotional environment. But she will eventually come out of this dark hole.
When somebody is depressed, when somebody, people who suffer from PTSD or other forms of depression, you should know that everything you say matters.
There are many people in Karen's situation who did not make it out successfully for fear of becoming another subject to be labeled or pointed at. Sadly, there are even more who still may not be able to overcome the mind battle if access to mental health care is not normalized in a humanizing way. Why should it be normalized? Data provided by the Ministry of Health in 2021 reveals that a total of 3.1 million Ghanaians, representing 10% of the country's projected 31 million population, have psychosocial, intellectual, and cognitive disabilities. According to the ministry, it is established that 41% of Ghanaians have psychological distress, which is either mild, moderate, or severe, and this costs the nation about 7% GDP loss. This is Samantha Abdullahi, a professional seamstress who has trained several people in a trade within the Wa metropolis. Before her 25th birthday, she was already set up in her dressmaking business. Samantha got married to another very promising young man, and all was going well, or at least so it seemed until she was diagnosed with schizophrenia. And as she narrates, the next decade or so of her life has been a pale shadow of her former self. Adams Abubakar is the assembly member for Sokbayeri, where Samantha now lives, and he has witnessed quite helplessly the downward spiral of Samantha's life.
She was doing well. She was having apprentices, about 6 of them, and I can even testify some of them have passed out and they are on their own. But when he was done with that sickness, things got wrong.
As her condition usually manifests, Samantha's speech gets distorted. She hallucinates and shows aggravated forms of delusion. She will often withdraw completely from her family and ignore any activity towards her personal hygiene. Soon, her entire family was withdrawn from her. Her marriage broken and children taken away. The closest thing to a constant feature in her life now is this dog, which barks at a few people who attempt to access her dilapidated building to hand out food and other supplies. But Samantha is not alone. There are hundreds of people in just the Upper West region who are living under similar conditions. Sylvester Basania is Regional Mental Health Coordinator.
So we have a varied number of mental health conditions in the region, amounting to about 21 cases. But I must say that we are burdened with about 5 major conditions in the region, and year in, year out, we have cases going up.
Behind the rising mental health cases in the region is the sheer insufficiency of staff within the various health facilities to attend to patients who are brought in. This reality gravely affects the quality of healthcare given to the patients. Sylvester Basania admits the seriousness of the challenge but says, though insufficient, efforts are underway to improve the number of mental health practitioners in the region.
Mental health practice is one thing that if people are not motivated enough to step into the field, it will be difficult for you to go handpicking people or encouraging people to actually go into the field. But I must admit that the key challenge that we are actually facing has to do with our medication. There are moments we get some support from the central medical stores, but we cannot actually guarantee a reliable source of these medicines.
While these efforts that Sylvester speaks of are pursued by government through the Mental Health Authority and other relevant agencies, many more people like Samantha Abdullahi, who suffer from one mental health disorder or the other, continue to remain unnoticed. For the few who are actually identified and brought into treatment, the burden of discrimination from family, colleagues, employers, and the society in general eventually weighs so much on them they begin to lose sight of the possibility of ever being reintegrated. The real fear, however, is that some of them are sent into prayer camps and other herbal installations for treatment under dehumanizing conditions. A situation that is highly frowned upon by Ghana's Mental Health Act and the numerous pacts which have been ratified by the Ghana government. Estelle Apia is a lawyer and quality rights advocate.
At the time when the law was being prepared in 2010, we had as many as 500 prayer camps in this country where treatment was being given in the herbal and spiritual context, subject to human rights abuses. Generally, they should not be marginalized. I mean, there are people who, in the past and even currently, I believe, who have mental disorder challenges, who would not want to be seen entering a psychiatric hospital.
Yes.
Ernest was diagnosed with schizophrenia in 2015, barely 10 years after he had started his teaching career. His woes began while he was at the T.I. Ahmadiyya Senior High School. It started as a gradual withdrawal from the rest of the teaching staff at the school, and before long, management of his school had reason to suspect he was not well, a suspicion which will be confirmed upon further medical assessment. Ernest himself, nonetheless, did not believe he was unwell.
To me, now I'm okay. The only thing I have that is not normal is usually my ability to sleep on the ground, that on the pretext that I was smoking too much, and so they diagnosed that was schizophrenia. Without sleeping pills and other things, I can't sleep properly.
And like light snapped out of a burning candle, Ernest's job was taken away from him and his name allegedly deleted from the government payroll. This stifled his ability to fend for himself and keep his family together.
They frustrated me and I stopped teaching. They deleted my name from the payroll and I couldn't finance my cost of transportation and other things and feeding. They used to prevent me from withdrawing my salary from commercial bank.
Why?
I never missed my lesson. They frustrated me, so one day I had to just destroy my ATM machine, a card. That day, indeed, because I planned how to spend the money.
The sacking of Ernest by his employers is one of the major ways by which persons living with mental health disorders are given a rude impression that they are not fit to be part of the community. Section 54 of Ghana's Mental Health Act 2012, Act 846, speaks prominently about discrimination against mental health patients. Subsection 3 says, quote, "A tenant or employee who develops mental disorder shall not be A. evicted from the place of residence of that person, or B. dismissed from the place of employment of that person," end quote. Section 63 of the same act re-emphasizes this right of the employee, but also gives the employer the right to terminate the employment contract after the employee is deemed to be medically unfit to continue working in the original capacity for which he or she was engaged. In terminating the employment of Ernest, he qualified for a severance package which was never paid him. According to Mind Freedom Ghana, a local NGO dedicated to mental health advocacy and sensitization, the provisions on non-discrimination in the Mental Health Act relative to employee rights are perhaps the most abused. Its Executive Secretary, Dan Taylor, emphasizes that even though a mental health condition may not be entirely healed, it can be properly treated while the patient returns to his or her normal life.
You are treated. There are some people whose conditions tend to be quite worse, so they would have to live with their condition for the rest of their lives. So that what needs is that they will go periodically for review, and they are given medications, they are told what to do and what not to do. That can, generate a condition. The issue of stigma too is something that we need to also look at, because if somebody has a physical condition, let me say like diabetes, hypertension, malaria, whatever, they are not stigmatized. They go for treatment at any time that they want to. So why not in mental health?
But as this very troubling order has it in most parts of Ghana, the thick stigma against persons with psychosocial, intellectual and cognitive disabilities flies right in the face of the law. Sometimes, and in the case of Ernest, the culprit is government. Ernest has lost every hope he had in humanity.
I've realized that people who are always put in positions to serve people do use their positions to rather terrorize the vulnerable ones they are to serve.
2,000 members and executives.
As I leave the Upper West region, I head for its eastern counterpart, some 120 miles away. In a town called Bongo, I have come to meet another mental health patient, Mariama Isifu.
He's a schoolboy.
She too a trained teacher. But unlike Ernest, whose condition might have arisen because of his use of narcotics, Mariama was involved in a motor accident which almost claimed her life. And as doctors managed to save her, her brain suffered a major blow, making her lose her memory. And that was the beginning of her own troubles.
After the accident, I lost my memory. It took time before I started gaining my memory, and then the headaches and sleepless nights. Sometimes I can be there throughout the day and night. I can't sleep for several days or weeks.
Soon, Mariama was not only battling memory loss, she was diagnosed of a bipolar disorder, making her hugely dependent on medications. Mariama's experience in going through that phase of her life exposed another troubling feature of Ghana's mental health care delivery system: sexual abuse.
And I went on a visit to a friend at China. There I met a mental health service provider, and we spoke, and he agreed that I could be coming there for every month for healthcare until he was transferred to Bongo Hospital. I followed him there to the Bongo Hospital. There it all started. Then he started sexually harassing me. He will come and he demands sex, to have sex with me.
Even before she could deal with the psychosocial effects of the torture and abuse she had experienced at the hand of her caregiver, Mariama found herself trapped in another emotional pressure cooker.
I was hurt after the accident when I returned back to school. Children were afraid to approach me. Meanwhile, usually when I get to school, children run to me. They come and embrace me, but they were afraid. So I had to ask some of them. They told me that this madam said I had an accident and I was mad. I said, really? Do mad people look like this? Then no. I said, I'm not mad.
Gradually, Mariama was thrown into a chronic state of depression.
I can get so depressed as a day. I can get so depressed that to the extent of me even getting up to brush my teeth is even a problem, let alone walking out of the room.
People suffering from mental disorders and other related conditions are predisposed to depression. This is mainly because of their tendencies to withdraw completely from everyone else and keep to themselves. Without deliberate attempts to reach out to them in their world and offer help and support, they risk moving from bad to worse. And that is why the World Health Organization has initiated quality rights to unite and empower people to improve the quality of care and promote human rights in mental health care and related services. Here is head of the WHO's Quality Rights Initiative in Ghana.
We realized that these violations are actually occurring in mental health services, in faith-based settings such as the prayer camps and such, and generally in communities. In response to these growing concerns, the WHO developed the Quality Rights Initiative for persons with psychosocial, intellectual, and cognitive disabilities.
Quality rights is premised on a CRPD, which is a framework for creating legislation and policies around the works that embrace the rights and dignity of all persons with disabilities. The project not only provides training for healthcare workers and mental health service users to improve service delivery, it will also leave a lasting legacy of respect for human rights. And indeed, evidence abounds about how mental health patients who are taken through the program show expedited recovery and are reintegrated into the society smoothly. Mariama is one of those patients who have undergone the Quality Rights program. And after all her disturbing experiences before the program, she sees a burning horizon right in front of her.
Oh, now I'm married and I'm living with my husband and my children, and I'm working with Ghana Education Service now. If you are a mental health service user, it doesn't mean that you are stupid or you should be looked down upon. No, we also reason. We have our rights.
This is the future of mental health care delivery in Ghana. That patients are treated under humane conditions with the objective of facilitating quick recovery and reintegration into communities which are well informed and know better than to stigmatize and discriminate against mental health patients. This is what a WHO Quality Rights Initiative seeks to achieve. After all, the mind matters.